Hello, good evening and a warm welcome to the turning point for ITN Sri Lanka. As we approach what is probably D-Day for most of us here in Sri Lanka, the elections, we thought we'd ask a senior member of the cabinet for his thoughts and his analysis, his political analysis of various matters which he will be privy to as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Ali Sabry. Good evening, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me, Pahara.
And as we fast approach the end of the presidential election period and so on, and people getting ready to vote, I just thought I'd ask you of various other foreign affairs matters that may not affect Sri Lanka's trade and so on. And in fact, how important are these relationships? And what is the relationship at the moment with the Arab world, the Muslim world? Because Sri Lanka did have some issues with it some years ago, a couple of years ago, or a little bit more than that. How is that relationship fractured as it was then? How is it now?
Thank you for us asking for that question. Very important one. I will say that how important that you must have someone at the helm who understand foreign policy intricacies, who understand the broad implication of internal matters. So foreign policy of a country is an extension of the domestic policy.
Indeed.
I can't go and market something which is not existent in the country. So during the COVID period, we had a very bad relationship with the Islamic world. They were very, very upset. The fact that we were the only country in the world, despite repeated requests from the world, force cremated the Muslim bodies. We made a lot of noise about it within the cabinet, outside, publicly, to the extent that some of the people went and called me as a terrorist, supporting extremists, just for asking the burial.
Yeah.
And I had to go to courts and get interim order against some monks. That was the situation at that time, unfortunately. But the government should have known better, not to listen to this ill-advised and people who are prejudiced on a racial line and carried on with that policy.
It suggests to me that the thinking of the government at the time was very, very shallow indeed. Because if you look at the numbers of our fellow citizens working in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, for example, and in the Gulf, these are predominantly Muslim countries and who have their faith in their justice system based around the Sharia law and so on. And so to them, they would have had a very intense understanding of the feelings of the Muslim population in this country.
Naturally, first of all, they should have never done whatever the consequence, I mean, even without any consequences, because you must look after your own people, and this is totally unnecessary. And this is an ill-advised group of advisors, calling themselves as doctors and professors and professors of whatever, geology or whoever.
Yeah.
We were nothing to do with the virus, comes out with this absurd report.
Yes.
We criticized from the day one. But I will just only talk to you at that point in time. If any leader who would understand, follow the WHO,
Indeed.
But unfortunately, we did not do that. The implication, you are very correct. About 85% of the Sri Lankan migrant workers goes to Gulf countries. Those are all Muslim countries. 85% of them. About 15% go to Japan and South Korea and Romania and other places. Most of the others who migrate to the Western countries like Australia and England and US and Canada and all, they don't send any remittance to Sri Lanka.
No.
They just go there and settle down themselves.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So that for them, we have created professionals through our through our free education to the benefit of those countries.
Indeed.
But the people who go here are the people from from our ordinary people who go there to these countries and send their remittances to the country, and that's how we got 7.2 billion remittance in 2020.
Yeah.
That came down to 2.46%, 46 billion, one third of it by 2022. What is the implication? The implication was clear. they freeze the number of visas issued to Sri Lanka. Then number of people migrated came there, and then the remittance also came down. As a result of which, there was massive pressure on the Sri Lankan rupee. Rupee went up by almost 70%.
Yes.
From 203 rupees to 370 rupees, about 85%. Then inflation went up by 74%. So somebody who understands these nuances, and who understands this global affairs, how it works, must be in help. That's why it's important. If you are a leader of the country, it's not a joke. Even if you are
you have pretty good peripheral vision.
You have to. Foreign policy, macroeconomic policies, public administration, defense, all of those things. So therefore, I agree with you that some of the ill-advised decisions in the past had made a lot of difficulties for the Sri Lankan foreign policy, but we have repaired it. We have extensively traveled to UAE, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, spoken to and met them, had so many bilateral relationships, Iran, and as a result of which, now our migrant workers to those countries are at an all-time high. Tourists are coming back. Saudis have resumed their development work, and a lot of work is going on. So I can say, with meticulous planning during the last couple of years, we have restored the relationship to a great extent. It's probably, you can say, only second to the period where Mrs. Bandaranaike had
took decisive action against Israel at the time. Do you think that'll ever happen again? Do you think, or has diplomatic relationships changed?
Now in the world, if you look at it, things have gone on. No one is saying that Israel should not be existent. Because they also have to live. They also, you shouldn't go through the same pain what they went through.
How far off is this two-state solution?
That's the thing.
Is that a pipe dream?
Two-state solution must come in. It's not a pipe dream. Everybody else is in favor. Only some big powers are blocking that. If they take serious action, it is possible. You must restore that. Palestinian people deserve their homeland, their state, and their land. So you cannot go on like this. So therefore, I think only one country can do that. That is the United States of America. They must seriously do that. They cannot be a one-sided partial broker. They must be an impartial, honest broker. I think one day that will happen. So it's important because the world is watching very closely.
And whilst we've been talking about Palestine and the affairs, the troubles really in that region, I think we need to then come back and understand that in Sri Lanka how important it was to return our country to peace and where all the people can live together. There's tourism between the north, the south, and so on and so forth, and the people are truly now as one. But now we have this election and so on. Do you think elections are a time to polarize different sort of factions and so on?
I'll come back to that. Before that, I will also want to just touch base on what Sri Lanka had done for the Palestinian cause during the last couple of years.
Oh, yes, indeed, yes.
It's important that we understand that Sri Lankans have been steadfast supporter of Palestinian cause for a long, long period of time. We have never wavered on that despite challenges. Sri Lanka is now chairing the Israeli Practices Committee in UN. So Palestinians are deeply grateful. Both the foreign minister and as well as the prime minister and the UN permanent representative have personally told me how grateful they are for the work what we do. And then Sri Lanka had supported all the resolution in favor of a two-state solution and to calling for a ceasefire. Sri Lanka had closed down the Jerusalem consulate. So there is a rumor which goes on and to say that we have opened it. It's not true. In fact, it was pre-existent consulate in Jerusalem had been closed down. So there were no consulate there and no new consulate at all. And fourthly, Sri Lanka established a Children of Gaza Fund. We have sent, with all our difficulties, with the economic crisis, close to about $2 million to them. And we have promised to build a school for them once the situation stabilizes and normal. So we have done our part. and we are steadfastly supporting them. So on the question that you have been asking about the local mechanism of and to avert polarization, very, very important. This country belongs to all Sri Lankans, irrespective of their race, religion, language, and we need to love and create a situation where all Sri Lankans could live in dignity. Luckily, for the first time in the history, all three main candidates are not going on a racial or ethnic line.
Yes.
It's a welcome change,
Absolutely.
a brilliant change, welcome change. It is maturity. All of them are saying, look, we are all here for national, not rolling it back. Therefore, provincial council is going to stay. I think that's very, very important. Unfortunately, the Tamils in the country during the last 70 years or so do not feel they are part of the governance, because most of their main parties, though contest, do not join the government.
Yes.
They are always in the opposition. Their strategy for a long period of time is federalism or nothing. You can't work like that. You need to gradually approach and win the confidence and trust of the South, so that even federalism could be possible. There is nothing wrong in that, as long as there is sufficient safeguard to prevent a secession. Right? So I think in that kind of scenario, it's important that we have the provincial council election and share the power with them. And they run their affairs in their areas, nothing wrong in that.
No.
So there could be sufficient safeguard in the constitution if anybody goes beyond their mandate and try to do something unbecoming and not healthy towards the united Sri Lankan status. You should always pull it back. So luckily, all three people are talking about it, and I feel this is a good time that all of us get together, work together, and create that Sri Lankan identity. I was just having a interview with some of the Tamil channels. I was telling them, Indians, first they will call themselves as Indians. Then they will call themselves as Indian Tamils. Then only Tamil Nadu people. And if you look at the Muslims from Tamil Nadu, first Indians, second they are from the Tamil Nadu. Then only they talk about their race or religion or anything. That's deeply cultural. We must create that. We must create that. Firstly, you become a Sri Lankan. Of course, you don't need to assimilate yourself, but you can accommodate. You can work with each other while protecting your dignity. So I think this election will be a turning point on that, and I'm very, very happy. One great advantage of this, all three main candidates are not taking on the or talking on the line of race, religion, or anything of that sort. They're all talking about national issues. I'm very, very grateful for it. So therefore, polarizing had not taken place. There are few other candidates trying to make use of it. But I don't think the Sri Lankan public is not going to buy it any longer.
So the turning point is here. The turning point is live on ITN Sri Lanka. We'll go for a short break and rejoin Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister, Mr. Ali Sabry.
Kamuda macang, prima kotumi fantamai.
Now best ever sunlight. පෙරටත් වඩා සුවඳක් සමගින් සුපිරි සේදුමක්.
Let's fire it up.
Introducing Prima Kottumi Korean Ramen.
Let's fire it up.
Lux කියන්නේ සබන් ගැටයක් විතරක් නෙවෙයි, සමට සත්කාරයක්. නව Lux. ගුණ පරපුරක සහතිකය. Anchor.
Now best ever sunlight. පෙරටත් වඩා සුවඳක් සමගින් සුපිරි සේදුමක්.
Introducing Prima Kottumi Korean Ramen.
Let's fire it up.
Cool වෙන්න, tune වෙන්න. Van.
සමේ ඇතුළටම ගමන් කරමින් ඩාර්ක් ස්පොට්ස් ආම් කරමින් දෙගුණ එක ග්ලෝ එකක් ලබා දෙයි.
Glow and Lovely Serum Cream.
කුවේට් ඩුබායි බහරෙන් මහා සම්මුඛ පරීක්ෂණ සැප්තැම්බර් 23 සඳුදා පාස්පෝර්ට් නැතත් එන්න විදේශ නියෝජිත පැමිණෙයි. ඔබේම කුරුණෑගල ග්‍රීන්වේ ඒජන්සීස්.
ජනාධිපතිවරණයට පෙර සහ පසු වරුණ ජයසුන්දර, නිහාල් තල්දුව, රසික පීරිස්, චින්තක කුලරත්න, සුධර්මන් සමක තුලාව බ්‍රහස්පතින්දා රාත්‍රී 10:30ට.
පැතිවරණ දිස්ත්‍රික්ක 22ක් මිනිත් 17කින් වූ ජනතා බලාපොරොත්තුවක්. රට දිනවන අභියෝගී මේ ළඟ මනාපය. Presidential Election 2024. කවුරුද ජනතා බලාපොරොත්තුව? සැප්තැම්බර් 21 පස්වරු 1 සිට. Live from ITN's HD studio. Unveiling Sri Lanka's future.
අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍ය සුසිල් ප්‍රේම්ජයන්ත.
රනිල්ට කැමති මිත්‍රශීලී රටවල්. බද්දෙන් පඩි නොගන්න හදන සජිත්. මහපුද්ගමුවෙන් කුඩු පලයිවෙලින් කේජී. අවයව බද්දයෙන් ගොඩගිය අය. නූලෙන් බේරුණු ට්‍රම්ප්. දෙස් පුවත් රැසක් සමගින් හමුවමු සවස 6:30 අපගේ ප්‍රධාන ප්‍රවෘත්ති විකාශයත් සමගින්.
And welcome back to the turning point. Indeed, Sri Lanka is at this turning point. And this turning point, of course, is for ITN Sri Lanka. Our guest today is Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister, Mr. Ali Sabry. Again, thank you, Mr. Ali Sabry, for being here. It's really crucial time now, isn't it? We're at the cusp of electing another leader, another president. And how essential, how crucial is this for the stability that has been created over the past 2 years and a bit? How essential is it that nothing is done to disturb that peace, that sort of stability?
Very, very important. We are at the eve of a very important elections. Some of the stability which we have gained is hard fought. It did not just come. We took very unpopular decisions sometime. Raising taxes, no one likes it.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
So, but we have to do it, and we did it. And as a result of which, the revenue had gone up. And the interest rate, which went up to 330%, had come down to the manageable proportions. Reserves, which were $20 million when I was the finance minister, less than $1 per person, had risen up to about $6 billion. Tourists are coming back. We have eliminated all sorts of queues. So these are results of so much of hard work. This have we done on our own? No, we have done it in consultation with the leaders of the world economic reforms. Who are they, whether we like it or not? IMF, World Bank, ADB.
And of course we've done it with the help of the people of Sri Lanka.
Of course, the people of Sri Lanka had gone through so much of pain. And they're born. So therefore it's important, this hard-won progress should not be reversed. They don't deserve it. So that is why it's important you can come out with rosy pictures and challenges and slogans. Those are not going to resolve your problems. If anyone is saying that I will increase the salary and decrease the taxes, there's a problem there.
There's a problem.
Take for yourself.
Yeah.
Your expenses should be commensurate to your salary.
Indeed.
Or you are the income, right? The moment you increase your expenses and decrease your salary, or income, what happens?
There's a disaster there.
Disaster. You get into debt, and 1 or 2 or 3 months people will support you. After that, nobody will start lending you, and the banks will come after you. This is exactly what happened to Sri Lanka in 2022. So do you want a repeat of that? Don't you learn from the mistake that you have done? No point of pointing finger that you did it, who did it. If you want to point fingers, you'll go on and on and on and on and end up in Vijaya. They will say that if Vijaya did not come to Sri Lanka, they wouldn't have no problem. So it is not the time to do so.
No. But Mr. Ali Sabry, Sri Lanka's wider understanding of economy, I think our understanding is rather poor and basic out there, and we're not all economists or anything remotely like that. How do the what I'm trying to say, I think, is that the public get easily misled economically. But do you agree that the public are no more easily misled because of the availability now of information at the fingertips, the digital world and so on, smartphones and all that?
I think you should ask, if you reduce the taxes and try to increase the salary, how are you going to do? I saw opposition leader going on and saying, if you go to the pensioner, he said, I'll increase the pension. If you go to the professionals, he said that I'll decrease the taxes. If you go to the schools, he will say that I will put more money into the education. But he's not saying where he's going to get it. So he's reduced the income and increased the expenses, mean disaster. Only way out is to print money. You can't do that now because of the Central Bank Act.
Yes, now
so then what do you do? Then you had to first go and remove the Central Bank Act. And then get a printing machine and start printing. Then what happens? Inflation will go out to the roof, and rupee will go to $500, dollar will go to the 500 rupees, and Sri Lanka will inevitably return to the doldrums what we went through in 2022. So do you want that? I think Sri Lankan public will not tolerate it. Sri Lankan public will not be misled. I was also going through the promises of the NPP. They are saying they are going to renegotiate the DSA. That's sustainable analysis. How are they going to do it? It's impossible. If you try to do that, it will probably take another 1 year. In the interim, the entire process will freeze and no funds will come into the country, and foreign countries probably withdraw from their support and programs. So this is a dangerous situation. Easy for anyone to come out and say different things, give those rosy promises, but every time public must understand, is it doable? It is doable. Can they? So therefore, if somebody is saying they are reducing the taxes and increasing the expenses, that means they are telling you, we will take you back to 2022. So do you want to be part of that? Live that life of a hell, 5 days in petrol queues, 2 months for your gas cylinder, go to the luxury supermarket and buy your dharamitiya, and everywhere so-called Aragale and Udgoshaniya, no tourists coming in. So no one wants to go through that again, at least in the living memory. It just happened 2 years ago. Because in Greece it happened. When government came after they held the 2006 Athens Olympic. Country came under severe economic pressure. So the government which was running introduced some austerity measures with the IMF. The country went back from them, defeated them, and got a socialist group in. But they went for a referendum. Naturally, public will be against the austerity measures. They lost. And they scrapped the referendum. Country went further down. And to the extent, for 5 years, they paid just 50% of the salary to the public service. So, change is good, provided change guarantee you a better life, a better economy. If you want a change for worse, might as well not to have that change. That's a choice public has on the 21st.
And of course, the example of Greece is very good. But more recently, in much closer home, we saw what happened in Bangladesh.
Of course.
And a little bit before that, what happened in Kenya. I think Sri Lanka didn't come to that last bit where parliament was overrun in both those countries and so on. And so Sri Lanka must thank themselves for the fact that their elected legislators managed to bring in the rule of law and say enough is enough, because there is a fine line, isn't there, between tolerance for democratic right of protest and so on and slipping off into anarchy.
Precisely. I think Sri Lankans safeguarded their constitution, stood by the constitution, but somebody must lead it.
Yes.
The leadership came from the President Wickremesinghe.
He seems to have broken another record in his long career, because he's been Prime Minister several times, 5 or 6 times and so on. But he's also probably the only person in the democratic world who's managed to become the president of the country, although he had one seat himself in parliament.
That is because the people in the parliament knew what he was capable of. When the Premadasa died in 1993 in tragic circumstances, he, the one who took control of it, became the prime minister and stabilized the country and supported D.B. Wijetunga. When Sri Lanka went through the first recession in 1999, when he took over in 2001, he stabilized the country and brought the country back to the growth trajectory by 2003, 2004. And this is the 3rd time he had done it. So in him, you have a proven leader. So when you have somebody of that nature, do you want to take a chance? No, it's very unfair. Sometimes we call him as that he had been there for 5 to 6 times as Prime Minister. What can a Prime Minister do in this executive system? Only a president who could make a change. And this is the first time he's running as a president, and he's operating as a president. And you could see a different Ranil Wickremesinghe as president as opposed to Prime Minister earlier, because he is the boss now. Earlier, he was number 2. He could always be overshadowed and overtaken and overruled by number 1. So therefore, it's unfair all the time to talk about, because only of him people talk about it. Mrs. Sirma Bandaranaike was the Prime Minister under Chandrika Kumaratunga. He couldn't do anything. D.M. Jayaratne couldn't do anything. Ratnasiri Wickremesinghe, nobody even talks about it.
Yeah.
So was the D.B. Wijetunga until he became the Prime Minister, President. So therefore, becoming Prime Minister 6 times and becoming President are 2 different things. And you could see a different Ranil Wickremesinghe as an executive president.
Thank you. And I think on that note, we'll have to wait for the results to come in and so on, and we'll be reporting that to you, of course, here on the Turning Point and on the various news alerts from ITN Sri Lanka. But Mr. Ali Sabry, Foreign Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me once again.
Thank you. Yeah. Great pleasure. And that's the way it was on the